Bro, what's going on, guys? It's prediction time. Something I've been waiting for quite a while now. The season's starting tomorrow between United and Fulham, and it's time to do our predictions. So obviously, a lot of prediction videos can be quite boring. You got to get through 20 teams, and it can drag on. But we're going to try and breeze through this if we can, because we want to cut to the chase very quickly. Because obviously we'll be here for hours otherwise. But yeah, let's get started. So in 20th place, I'm going to go with Southampton. Now, in truth, Leeds probably should have gone up, let's be honest. But Southampton earned the right to be here because they were brilliant in the playoff final. I just think it'll be a step too far this season. I like the signings. Wood's a good signing from Swansea and Edwards from Peterborough. They're clearly planning in case they get relegated, so that they've got a good enough squad to come out of the Championship next year. But they got a chance. I just think it'll be a step too far. I think they'll come 20th this season, but we'll see what happens. 19th, I'm going to go with Leicester City. They got Fatawu on a permanent deal. I think that was a good signing. De Cordova-Reid's come in. But I just feel, again, just like Southampton, I think the quality of the Premier League is just too strong. And I think they're going to just slightly fall short. And they lost the manager as well, and that's important. So, unfortunately for Leicester, I'm going 19th. And now in 18th, I'm going Nottingham Forest. Now, with Nottingham Forest, they just seem to be changing their team so much. They're constantly getting rid of 8 players, bringing in 8 players, and it's not sustainable. And I think they've been flirting with relegation for quite a few years, and I think this is the season where they're going to fall short. So Nottingham Forest, 18th. So that means 17th, Ipswich Town. So I'm obviously predicting Ipswich to stay up. I think it'll be a brilliant fairy tale story if they do, because we've missed them. They haven't been in the league for over 20 years. I just feel there's a real team unity about them. They've just brought in Calvin Phillips. Omari Hutchinson on a permanent deal was a very good signing. But the team they have, the manager they have, I just think there's something special with Ipswich. And I think they'll just get over the line and stay in the division. 16th, I've gone with Brentford. A lot of people have predicted Brentford to go down. I think they're too good to go down. I do think they'll be in the relegation race, but I think they'll just have enough, especially if they can keep Tony. But even if they don't keep Tony, I still back the likes of Wissa and Burmo to pull Brentford out of it. I think Brentford will be fine. Great manager as well. They'll be okay. 16th for Brentford. 15th, a big shock. I'm going for Brighton. This manager, I'm hearing wonderful things about him. I just feel Brighton are going to have a spell in the season where they do well, and then I think they're going to fall off. A little bit like last season. I just think it's going to be a weird one for Brighton. I don't think Brighton will be in any danger of getting relegated, but I think they might just towards the end find their way down the table. And I think, I think it'll be an underwhelming season for Brighton. But they've had wonderful years, and they're still going to be a Premier League club in my opinion. So not the worst season. Brighton in 15th for me. 14th, I'm going with Wolves. I think losing Neto and losing Kilman were big losses. But I think Gary O'Neill's done brilliant things at Wolves. I think he'll turn it around and replace those players really well. He's already got something going with Wolves at the moment. I just think they faded away a little bit last season. I think they're going to start this season quite slowly, I feel. But I think towards the Christmas period and January, February, I think they'll pick it up and I think they'll get themselves okay. And like Brighton, I don't think they'll be involved in a relegation battle. But nevertheless, 14th. 13th, I'm going for Everton. Now, Everton would have finished 12th, I think, without the points deductions last season. So, just goes to show that Everton had a pretty decent season. And I think if they can get a whole season out of Calvert-Lewin, I think that'll be brilliant because they need him. They're such a different team when he's playing. And defensively, they're immense. And they got a good manager. So, Everton, 13th for me. 12th, I'm going Fulham. They've bought some really good players, the likes of Smith Rowe and Sessegnon coming back. Those are 2 brilliant signings. They're going to miss Paulinho. They're going to miss Tosin Adarabioyo, but De Cordova-Reid as well. But I just think Fulham will be okay. Again, really good manager. They've bought well. I'm tipping Fulham to do okay. I'm going 12th. 11th, I'm going Crystal Palace. I would have put them higher if they kept Elise. Nevertheless, they bought Ismail Assar. Gahey might leave though. So Crystal Palace are a weird one. I think they'll have a good season. They might be in the top half for a lot of the season, but then I think they'll fade away towards the end. And I think 11th for Crystal Palace. So that means 10th is going to be Bournemouth. Bit of a risk because they've just lost Dominic Solanke. But I still think this manager is very, very good. And I think he'll replace Solanke with someone very soon. And they just seem so well drilled now. You know, I think they were in the top half in the form table for like the whole of the second half of last season. They were brilliant. They were really good. And yes, Solanke's goals were important, but I still think the likes of Christie and Cook in the midfield, Semenyo on the right, they got a good team, really good team, and I think they're going to surprise a few people and finish 10th this season. Ninth, I'm going West Ham. They've bought some wonderful players. I wouldn't be surprised if West Ham finished even higher than ninth because they've bought so well this summer. But I just think there's 8 teams above them who have proved last season, the season before, that they're here to stay. And I personally feel West Ham will fall slightly short of them. But it wouldn't surprise me if they finished above ninth. They're definitely not finishing below. They have bought some wonderful players. And their team is dangerous as well. So I think they'll finish at least ninth, maybe higher. 8th place, I'm going Spurs. I think even though they finished 5th last season, the second half of the season, they were really poor. They were really poor, and they probably should have grabbed that top 4. But they were so off it in the second half of the season that I think there's a lot of work Spurs need to do. And Solanke's a good signing, but only bringing in him, they need 2 more senior players for me. When I say senior, I mean 24 to 26, not 18-year-old kids. They need more. And if they do get more, maybe higher than 8th. But for me, I think they'll fall short this season. I think they'll come 8th. But they got a great manager. I love Ange Postecoglou. And the longer Spurs keep him, the better they'll be. But yeah, 7th place, I'm going Aston Villa. Wonderful season last year. And even the season before, getting into the Europa Conference League. And I think this year, getting Champions League was just immense. I personally don't think they're going to be able to juggle around Champions League football and the Premier League. And I think eventually they might be in the top 4 for a large parts of the season. But I think they might fade away towards the end. Because I think the Wednesday, Saturday routine is so tough. And Aston Villa I think it'll be a step too far. But they've recruited really well. And I know they played Thursday nights last season, but they're playing against nobodies. They're going to be playing against proper teams this year in the Champions League. And I think it might just be a little bit too much. But nevertheless, under Gerrard 3 years ago and Dean Smith, Villa were near the relegation zone. So Emery's done wonders. I don't think it's a problem if they finish 7th at all. They're on the right track. Great manager. 7th for me. 6th, I'm going Manchester United. I do think they'll improve on last season. I think they've done well to win the FA Cup. Their form was slightly better towards the end of the season. I don't think they'll improve as much as some people are saying, but I think they'll definitely improve. And I think 6th place is fair for Man United. I think in the process that they're on, I think there's nothing wrong with 6th. They can get 6th next year and maybe then look to get top 4 the season after, because it's a process. They've got to be patient. 6th place for me. 5th place, I'm going Newcastle. I was so impressed with Newcastle towards the end of last season. I thought they were really, really picking up form. And again, I think they're going to really improve on the previous season. Such a great team. Like Tonali back as well. I mean, Tonali, Joe Linton and Bruno in a midfield is just brilliant. And then you've got the likes of Harvey Barnes, Isak and Gordon up front. You know, Gahey might come in. Lloyd Kelly's already come in. Look out for Newcastle. They've honestly done really well in the market as well. So, yeah, I think they'll come 5th this year. 4th is going to be Chelsea. Now, this is the big risk. This is the one which is going to raise eyebrows. But I just think Chelsea, with the players they have, they were really doing well in the second part of last season. And I think the likes of Neto, Tosin coming in, Dewsbury Hall, I think them added to the existing players that have, like Caicedo, will be even better than he was last season because he picked it up brilliantly towards the end. Palmer will be a bit better. I just really tip Chelsea to improve. Even though things aren't very good now, I do think eventually it'll pay off for them this season. I think they could really surprise a few people. So, yeah, 4th for Chelsea. 3rd, Liverpool. I think Liverpool with a new manager will struggle slightly. I Last season they were close to second, and they finished third. But this year I think they'll finish third and be closer to fourth. But nonetheless, they'll still finish in the top three because they've still got wonderful players like Salah, Van Dijk, Trent. They've still got wonderful players in the team, but it's just not going to be as smooth because it's Arne Slot's first season, so it's going to be difficult to get a rhythm going to start with. But I think they'll eventually pick it up, and I think they'll eventually get third. So Liverpool won't finish below that. They won't finish higher. I think it's a guarantee they'll come third. So that leaves the top two. Who is going to win the Premier League title? I'm going to go for Arsenal. And it's not because I support Arsenal. I think the last time I predicted Arsenal to win a league was 10 years ago, probably the Leicester season. I didn't think we'd win it last year, and I didn't think we'd win it the season before, and I stuck to my guns all throughout the season. But this is the season I think Arsenal will do it. I think it's all been building for this moment. It's nothing to do with any bias because, like I said, I didn't predict us to win the league last season either. I just think this year, I think we'll bring in 2 more players, and I just think the likes of Odegaard, Saka, Rice, they're going to be hungry, really hungry to do it. And I don't think we'll necessarily get much better from last season. I think we'll sort of stay the same to where we were in the second half of last season. I think we'll stay at that level, but I think Man City will drop slightly, and I think that's what's going to lead us to go on and win the title, because I think with City, it's there were some hairy moments for City last season. Obviously, they've done wonderful. They're a wonderful team. I wouldn't be surprised if City went and done it. I wouldn't be surprised because they're such a wonderful team. But there were certain signs last season when they didn't have Rodri. You know, they were a different team. They weren't the same. And even in the Spurs game, like Son, that chance that Son had, it was such fine margins. City deserved it last season. They really deserved it, but it was close. It was very close. It was such fine margins. But I think this is the year. I think Arsenal, there's a lot of anger with Arsenal. There's a lot of determination. And you could see that at the end of the season when Arteta and Odegaard done that speech. It's like, it's now or never. Because I think if Arsenal don't win it next year, then I don't think they'll ever win it under Arteta, because it will just be so disappointing. Because they're such a great team. We've got such a great team. And it'll be so disappointing if this team goes on to never win the Premier League. It'll be such a shame, but I think they have to do it next year, because if they do it next year, it'll make them more confident of doing it in the coming years ahead. And if they don't win it, they'll probably just lose all confidence. I think they'll never do it. But City probably don't have as much incentive because they've won 4 already. They've got nothing else to prove. But Pep Guardiola is just a different animal. As soon as you think City are out of it, they just creep back in, and it's just... They're a wonderful team. I love Man City. If I try and put my neutral hat on, they're a wonderful team. I just think Arsenal will just edge it this season. But there we are. That's my prediction, my 1 to 20. I'm sorry if I offended any clubs and undersold their hopes. But it's part of it, you know. Someone has to finish somewhere. And unfortunately, the likes of Southampton and Leicester have drawn the short straw, and Forest. But yeah, we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. But that was my prediction. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.